Thank you so much, Prof, for your time and welcome to ENCA. I'm very keen to know how exactly, this will work, of course, in partnership with the various telecommunication companies who've partnered with you.
So thank you for having me. We obviously look for every opportunity to be able to connect with our students, and this is a very good opportunity. The partnership negotiations have been going on for a while, and a lot of it is related to URL development on the side of the telcos, making sure that sites that are educational sites are zero-rated so that students can have easy access to these zero-rated sites. And the sites then would be the ones where we would load our content and programs and courses.
Prof, what do we mean when we say zero-rated? Just for clarity, absolute clarity, does it mean that a student sitting somewhere in a remote area, a rural area, wanting to access these sites doesn't necessarily need to have data loaded on their device for them to access these? Please clarify for us.
I think that's a very important question, because the issue about zero rating has been used very loosely. And it's exactly as you describe, and that is that it'll have access to sites that would not require the use of data. So that's exactly the description as we've been given by the telcos.
Yeah, so this rather e-learning program, Prof, will start on the 20th of April. Are students aware? Have they been in contact perhaps with their lecturers and their tutors in terms of how, this transition would be as seamless as possible, given that, Wits University is more of a traditional, institution of higher learning where there's more direct contact, and this might be something new for both the students and perhaps the lecturers?
I think the COVID pandemic has given us in some ways a peek into the future of learning and how learning will take place, what we think about it. But we've been in contact with our students regularly since the lockdown, keeping them informed every step of the way about exactly how we're thinking about rolling this out, what the emergency plan looks like, and so on. So we have regular communiques going to all students, all staff. What we've also done is the communiques we've translated for staff members in other languages, and it's sent out in a voice note. The main point being that we're keeping in touch with staff and students on a regular basis, so they know exactly what is unfolding and how it's unfolding. This week we've introduced an orientation week, and the orientation week is really for staff and students to familiarize themselves with how the online will work. We're mindful of the fact that this is not a perfect program, but this is certainly an emergency response to an emergency situation that we find ourselves in.
And I know that part of your preoccupation in trying to come up with solutions in this instance, Prof, had to do with the portion of the university community that don't necessarily have access to smart devices, laptops, and tablets and cell phones and the likes. You have devised some kind of a solution that takes into account the socio-economic status of students?
We're completely mindful of the digital inequality, not even just the digital divide, but the digital inequality in terms of access to devices, access to data, connectivity, and even the study conditions in which many of our students are having to study in. Our data shows us, collected over a period of 4 years, that between 10 and 15% of our students will not have access to a device or to connectivity or to data. And, we've now responded quite decisively by having an engagement with a company that's able to provide us with a number of laptops, and these will be delivered to individual students via a particular process to ensure that everyone is on board and online as soon as next week. Of course, we're mindful of the fact that the geography or the geographical distance that students may be in will pose some challenges, but we're looking at it every step of the way. So the issue around digital inequality is foremost in our minds, and that is informing every decision that we're taking currently.
And just, Prof, before I let you go, just talking about fees here, we had a conversation just recently with the Independent Schools Association, just obviously talking about basic education. When looking at higher education, Wits in particular, would fees still be the same, given that, students who are perhaps primarily housed at your student residential accommodation, are understandably at home right now in self-isolation, and also those who are either day scholars, not necessarily going to be having those contact lectures in class, and perhaps might be wondering if fees would be the same. Some, of course, we know, don't have the privilege of having a bursary institution sort of subsidizing their fees. Some have to pay out of their pockets, or their parents have to pay out of their pockets, and we all know maybe some of them, their income might have been compromised at this time. So can you clarify whether fees will still remain as is?
So, I think financial sustainability for families and higher education institutions is a very important question, and it's a question we're engaging in, but it is premature to settle on an answer on that, particularly because of the kind of situation we find ourselves. The pandemic has been such that we've been on shifting sand as a country and as a world, so it's pretty difficult to make firm decisions when the sand shifts in the way that it does. But those are all questions that the sector is looking at more broadly.
All right, thank you for that. That is Professor Roxana Osman, who is the Deputy Vice Chancellor at Wits University.